Hello and welcome to the table, Baldurs Gate, DND, and yes, Avatar The Last Airbender friends as well. Have a seat, grab your favorite drink, and settle in for a unique modded character build and subclass of the Warlock, the Fathomless Patron. This subclass is water and sea themed with thematic spells and damage types, as well as one of your main focus actions being summoning a spectral tentacle to fight alongside you. This episode will be going through all 12 levels of the Fathomless Patron. Credits to the mod author, Vinab, for putting the time and effort in bringing the theme of this class and its features to life. Because of the clear ocean and sea theme, I wanted to base this character build off of Katara, a very proficient waterbender in her own right, and we will be making this build as similar as possible to her. However, since this is a Warlock class, it's only right we add some choices that are darker in nature and yes, reference her ability to bloodbend as well. Now, for those who are new to the channel, one of my main focuses for videos is creating unique Baldurs Gate 3 characters, utilizing mods both for enhancement and roleplay, specifically giving you more different types of replayability. Now, if that's something you are really into, I would love to have you list your personal favorite character builds in the comments below, and let's talk shop about what kinds of characters you would specifically build this class around, if you would multi-class this with other modded classes or with base game classes too, or just completely different character build requests as well. As a side note, I also have videos of narrative-driven Total War Warhammer campaigns, both modded and non-modded factions, to show and tell unique stories of each of those individual leaders. Now, if you love talking shop about all types of character builds, or epic story-driven war campaigns, and anything related to D&D, Elder Scrolls, or Warhammer, consider hitting the like, subscribe, and bell icon notifications for more unique adventures like that in the future. And yes, to all my returning viewers, I know this build may seem similar to my previous Bloodbender build video. That was such a fun character to create, and yes, new viewers, I highly recommend checking out that character build for yourselves. I'll leave a link to it in one of the comments below. However, that is more so focused on actual bloodbending and spells, while this one is specifically utilizing water-based abilities. The previous one focuses on bleed damage. This one is very much roleplay thematic, but also very useful in combat too, with your summon tentacle and also some other unique features which we'll go into more detail later on in the video. So yes, similar, but also distinct enough from one another. Also, to the new viewers who may have stumbled upon this video specifically, the way we will structure this character build is going through the starting level with specific choices in race and other beginning features, levels 2 through 12, and then wrapping up with gear and equipment to complement the build in terms of roleplay, or improving and leaning into the stats and spells. Now, when it comes to character builds, I do mainly stick with choices and abilities, spells, equipment, whatnot, that suit the characters thematically, or are keeping in line with what the mod author intended for the class. However, I do sometimes slip into choosing metagame choices or very strategic damage output choices. I am aware in the D&D and Baldur's Gate communities, there's players in different camps that are either all for roleplay and just trying to keep in line with what the character should be, and also there's the min-max damage output, not really caring too much about keeping in line with the theme of the character and just really trying to number crunch. But whichever camp you fall into, regardless of whichever, just as long as you yourself are having fun with the modded class, that's what matters in the end. Now, yes, I know some of my returning viewers know this already, but for the new viewers too, the reason I'm going through only all 12 levels as this class is to really showcase everything there is to offer, and as a way to say thank you to the mod author. And yes, of course, as an extra thank you, I will leave the link to the mod in the pinned comment below. It should appear for you all at the very top of the comments too. And also a couple of other mod links to complement the race, and also some other spell mods too. And yes, I do have plans on making separate videos for multi-classing this class. Plus also, I have noticed the past few comments in previous videos have been begging for multi-classing modded classes together. However, like I said, I do want to save those for separate later videos. I know some of the returning viewers are really waiting patiently. Thank you so much for that. But also, I genuinely really want to showcase modded class. A couple of more modded classes, not too much down the list of just the classes alone. And I can promise you, returning viewers, and also new viewers as well who are on the edge of your seats for these character builds, that modded multi-class character builds are coming along the way very early in the near future too, I may add. And there's going to be an insane amount of different synergies. Now, without further ado, let's get into the first level of this build. Alright everyone, for the obvious choice in race, Katara is a human, and that may seem boring at first glance. However, using a mod that adds essentially the variant human from 5th edition D&D, this adds different race passives that we can choose from to really customize and set our character apart from vanilla-based humans too. Also, side note, I should have said this in the beginning too, but technically this is also a lore-friendly class. This is part of 5th edition D&D if I remember correctly, but also lore aficionados, please let me know if there are any changes or differences. I do love hearing about specific mechanics and also lore of different classes and characters, but also I know there's limitations to what is available in a game compared to the tabletop. Anyways, back to the race passives, we can choose a total of 3. My personal choices here is fast hands for the first one, gain an additional bonus action. Seems simple enough, but as some of my returning viewers know, I am all about action economy and being able to take multiple actions or potentially multiple attacks with those actions in one turn. So fast hands is going to play well into that kind of strategy. Plus also it pairs well with some of the actions and bonus actions of us as a warlock too. We'll also be getting uncanny dodge, lightning quick reflexes to protect yourself when an attack hits you, only take half the usual damage. Also seems simple enough, but also because of the fact that we'll essentially be casting and blasting, we're going to want to take as little damage as possible. We're not going to be totally tanky with this passive, but also it's going to provide us a lot of survivability. As for the third and final passive, I would personally pick Potent Cantrip. Your cantrips become harder to evade entirely. When a creature succeeds its saving throw against one of your cantrips, it still takes half the cantrip's damage, but suffers no additional effects. So this is going to be really useful because some of our cantrip choices will essentially be our bread and butter damage output spells. And also, it's going to really make sure that we can maximize the amount of damage that we can dish out in the early game stages. Alright, when it comes to cantrip choices, I know this isn't technically water-based damage, but cold is as close as possible that we can get, and I'm pretty sure most waterbenders would be using these types of spells too. So, for the first one, Frostbite, a meager 1 to 6 cold damage, but also imposing disadvantage on an enemy's next attack roll. This is a good lead-in and first attack to have, and then following up with Cold Blast, which is essentially the different types of elemental Eldritch Blast that we can have. As for our specific spell choices here, Fear may be a questionable one for roleplay purposes, but we can justify it as saying that this is essentially Katara using bloodbending to frighten her opponents or to essentially immobilize them, which is what fear does anyway. For a whopping 10 turns at starting level, frightened creatures cannot move, and frightened entities have disadvantage on ability checks and attack rolls. So essentially you're taking control of their body and keeping them as immobile as possible. Also, for the second spell choice here, Armor of Agathis, gain 5 temporary hit points and deal 5 cold damage back to any creature that hits you with a melee attack. It's a good, almost tanky spell to have, and also temporary hit points and being able to reflect damage back to your opponent should they actually land a hit on you. This is a good little safety net spell. Not really get out of jail free, but it's essentially there to give you that extra fighting chance and survivability. We also gain the class specific bonus action of summoning a spectral tentacle. Now you can decide whether to command it yourself with subservient spectral tentacle or have it act on its own with unchained spectral tentacle. For me personally, I like having total control of my minions and summons, so I'm going to go with subservient spectral tentacle. With command tentacle, give an order to your spectral tentacle, allowing it to move up to 9 meters and making a melee attack on its turn. The tentacle gains an attack bonus based on your proficiency bonus and charisma modifier. For the background, I personally like choosing Urchin for this class, giving us very useful skills of sleight of hand and also stealth. We can justify it as saying that Katara was essentially on the run and kind of an urchin with Aang and her brother Sokka while traveling too. Alright, when it comes to ability point allocation, this is going to be a very wild choice of build, but bear with me, friends. So the majority of our points we are going to dump into charisma, getting it up to the max amount of 17. Wisdom we're going to leave at 10. No negatives or pluses to will saves there. But this is going to be a bit of a risky move, not so much for taking points away from strength because, well, hopefully we're not going to end up too much in melee combat, but we'll be taking points away from intelligence, dumping them into dexterity and constitution, getting dexterity up to a respectable 14, constitution to a respectable 16, adding +3 and +2 there. And essentially this is us being able to hold our own in combat with the bonuses to health, and also higher initiative on taking turns first, plus also a higher AC too. With our skill proficiencies, we'll be having a +4 to sleight of hand, +4 to stealth, +1 to arcana, deception at a very strong +5, and intimidation at a very strong +5 as well. At level 2, the spell choice I would choose here would be Charm Person. We can justify it as saying that this is a low-level bloodbending spell, just charming a humanoid and preventing it from attacking you, essentially doing a little bit of slight mind control there on Katara's end. For Eldritch Invocations, we're going to double down on our Cold Eldritch Blast by taking up Agonizing Blast, adding a Charisma modifier to damage output, and Repelling Blast to push enemies back 4.5 meters away, giving us a little bit of battlefield control and distancing ourselves to keep blasting and relaxing. At level 3, the spell choice I would personally pick here would be Hold Person. It's a higher level spell and stronger than Charm Person. Essentially, this is more in line with what bloodbending actually is, keeping your enemies still in place and also making sure that attacks from our allies in 3 meters are always critical hits for a whole 10 turns. Pact Boon here, I would personally pick Pact of the Chain, allowing us to summon an additional minion to fight alongside our tentacle. We can justify this as saying it's our version of summoning Momo, even though imps and quasits are essentially going to be evil Momos. Find Familiar would more so be in line with a good type of Momo. We also gain spells here, which will be very useful for us as casters. Gust of Wind, summon a strong wind that clears all clouds and pushes creatures back 5 meters and knocking them off balance. Silence is going to be good for us as an anti-magic and also for us dealing with enemy casters too. At level 4, pick whichever cantrip you want here dependent on your playstyle, but for role-playing purposes, I'm going to justify Minor Illusion as us using our waterbending to create a temporary humanoid form to trick enemies and also to help us with stealthy maneuvers. For spell choice here, I personally would pick up Crown of Madness, a more violent version of bloodbending if you want to justify it that way, making enemies go absolute bonkers and attacking their closest allies for 10 turns. As for feat, I would personally go for ability improvement, and yes, I know typically some people would throw 1 point into their spellcasting modifier, 1 point into Constitution or Dex, but since Constitution and Dex are at respectable numbers already, I'm going to go all in on the Charisma modifier to help with our damage output and overall spellcasting modifier. It is just 1 point away from 20, but when we get to the second feat, then I'll tell you which specific one we'll choose then, which will eventually round it up to 20 itself. At level 5, our familiars gain an extra attack, and also our subclass itself gains specific spells of Sleet Storm, calling forth a storm that disrupts concentration of casters, douses fires, and creates an ice surface which is pretty slippery and counts as difficult terrain. Plus also this lasts for 10 turns, and also we do gain Lightning Bolt. I know it's not technically a water bending spell or within Katara's repertoire, but this is nonetheless a good damage output spell to have with 8 to 48 potential damage. Call forth a blast of lightning that hits all creatures in the line of eruption. This will definitely pair well with some of the other later waterbending spells and creating water too, essentially making electrified surfaces. For the spell choice here, I would personally pick up Counterspell. Essentially, this is again another anti-spell caster choice of dishing damage back to enemy casters who try to get us. And also, when it comes to Eldritch Invocations, I would personally pick up Armor of Shadows. Armor of Shadows allows us to cast Mage Armor on ourselves without expending a spell slot. And this part here, not expending a spell slot, that's what I'm really focused on here too. Making sure that we save up our spell slots for more offensive based abilities too. I'd also replace the spell Armor of Agathis with a more offensive based one with like Enemies Abound, reaching into a creature's mind and causing it to absolutely go mad and start attacking all hostile creatures, even its friends, for 10 turns. At level 6, we gain subclass specific features of Oceanic Soul, resistance to cold damage, and Guardian Coil. Tentacle of the Deep can defend you or your allies. You can use your reaction to protect an ally within 3 meters of it, reducing the damage they take by 1d8. As for the spell choice here, I would personally pick Hunger of Hadar. Creatures within Black Sphere are blinded and take both cold and acid damage at the end of their turn and start of their turn, or a whole 10 turns too. The area is also counted as difficult terrain. This is going to really pair well with our Summon Tentacle, as enemies are going to be hit with the condition of blinded, taking damage over time from cold and acid, and also getting mollywopped by our tentacle. At level 7, we gain subclass specific spells of Control Water and Ice Storm. With Control Water, we conjure waves of water at our enemies. Once cast, we can recast weaker versions of the same spells for the next 10 turns without expending a spell slot. Already, that last description there, not expending a spell slot, as Warlocks don't really have too many to begin with. That's going to be really useful for us, and also having that body of water, it literally plays well into our roleplay style of Katara. Ice Storm is going to be a good supplementary damage spell with 6 to 40 bludgeoning and cold damage. Impel a storm of ice and hail to crash from the sky, covering the ground and striking all objects and creatures within for 2 turns, also knocking them prone and reducing their movement speed. For the spell choice here, I would pick Charm Monster. It's essentially getting the monsters to stop attacking you, and it's like a weak form of bloodbending for non-humanoids. As for Eldritch Invocations, I would personally pick up Dreadful Word. Yes, I know it does technically cost a spell slot for us to cast Confusion, but the fact that it affects a group of creatures, giving us that crowd control potential, causing them to attack each other, wander around aimlessly, or most importantly, skip turns so then it can get to us taking our turn and dishing out damage faster. At level 8, go ahead and choose whichever spell you want here. For me, I would personally pick either Hypnotic Pattern or Fear. Yes, more spells that are essentially inline or we can reflavor and roleplay as bloodbender spells. Hypnotic Pattern is really useful though, as it can affect any creature, not just one, but potentially a group of creatures that sees your Hypnotic Pattern, can't attack you, and they can't move or act. Now, the main feature I want to focus on here is the feat choice. I'm going to be using one of the modded feats, Gift of the Gem Dragon, increase our intelligence, wisdom, or in this case, our charisma by 1, maxing it out to 20, and giving us high spell casting and overall damage output potential. When you take damage from a creature within 3 meters of you, you can use your reaction to deal force damage and attempt to push the creature away, just giving us a little bit of breathing room and time to escape. At level 9, we gain subclass specific spells of Cone of Cold and Maelstrom. With Cone of Cold, it has the potential to do 8 to 64 cold damage, make a flurry of frost, crisp air, and condensed snow crystals erupt from your hands in 9 meters. This is a good crowd control, while specifically a close quarters crowd control spell. But also Maelstrom does a potential 6 to 36 bludgeoning damage. This is more so in line with airbending spells. Summon a massive 9-meter radius sphere centered on a point you can see within range that lasts up to 10 turns. Area becomes difficult terrain, and any creature that starts their turn in there must succeed a DC 19 strength saving throw or take the bludgeoning damage and be pulled 3 feet towards the center for 10 turns. With the spell choice here, I would personally pick up Hold Monster. It's essentially a stronger version of a Hold Person, just keeping monstrous entities in place. And just like with Hold Person, attacks from 3 meters are always critical hits for 10 turns. For the Eldritch Invocation, I would personally pick up Minions of Chaos, allowing us to summon an elemental with a Warlock spell slot. This is a good potential choice for us, as it's essentially giving us another minion to fight alongside on the battlefield. At level 10, go ahead and choose whichever spell and cantrip you want here. For me, and role-playing Justified-wise, Planar Binding is a good one to pick up. Specifically, it's kind of like us using bloodbending to bend a celestial, fiend, elemental, or fae to our will. Cantrip here, Poison Spray, is a pretty good one too, of 3 to 36 damage. This is essentially almost like a waterbending, or you can say it's like poison waterbending if you want to justify it that way. But some of the features I really want to focus on here are the subclass features and the spells we gain. With the subclass features, Grasping Tentacles, gain Evard's Black Tentacles as a Warlock spell, and Evard's Deep Sea Tentacles as a Long Rest spell. When you cast either spell, gain temporary hit points based on your Warlock class level. Moreover, damage can't break your concentration on these spells. Guardian Coil, Tentacle of the Deep can defend you or your allies. You can use your reaction to protect an ally within 3 meters of it, reducing the damage they take by 2d8. Evard's Black Sea Tentacles does 3 to 18 bludgeoning damage. Tentacles sprout from the ground, turning the area into difficult terrain, attacking and smothering creatures within. and also Ever's Black Tentacles. This version compared to the other one, it's pretty much the same thing from what I'm seeing here. At level 11, pick whichever Mystic Arcanum spell and also extra spell you want here. Really doesn't matter at this point, but personally for me, roleplay wise, I would pick Flesh to Stone. It's kind of stretching it when it comes to justifying this for roleplay wise, but essentially turning people to stone could be seen as really just the ultimate form of paralysis, just keeping them in place and turning them into a living statue. Gaining a spell here, Flock of Familiars, you could essentially justify this as saying, hey, I want to have a whole army of extra Momos. At level 12, go ahead and choose whichever spell you want here. For me, I like picking up Far Step, allowing us to teleport to an unoccupied space we can see, and also being able to teleport again as a bonus action on our turns. This is essentially a get out of jail free card, and also when it comes to Eldritch Invocations, I like Otherworldly Leap. Again, another get out of jail free card with Enhanced Leap, tripling our jumping distance, but also without expending a spell slot this time. As for the specific feat here, I'm going to be using another modded one called Meta Magic Adept, allowing us to dip our toes into the sorcery class, gaining 2 sorcery points to spend on one of these effects. And because of our spells and overall build, I'm going to pick Extended Spell, double the duration of conditions, especially our summons and surfaces caused by spells, mainly in line with our summon and our tentacle. Twin Spell is also a very useful one here too. Spells that target only one creature can target an additional creature, and this goes in line with cantrips too, allowing for more crowd control and also being able to shoot our shot literally as many times as possible. This will really pair well with some of our other pieces of equipment, which we will get into more detail in just a second. Alright everyone, when it comes to our pieces of equipment and gear here, it's going to be a mishmash of different items from legendary sets, modded sets, and also base game sets. But bear with me here, it is to be in line with what Katara would probably wear, maybe, most likely, but also to really lean into the spell casting potential. And with that, we're going to be using Staff of Spell Power, Arcane Enchantment, +1 bonus to spell save DC, and also our spell attack rolls. But also, I really want to focus on Arcane Battery, alleviate the arcane burden of spellcasting with the power of the staff. Next spell you cast doesn't cost a spell slot, really helping out with our action economy there, and making sure that we can keep using our more of our high level spells in battle. With Amulet of Restoration, we gain Healing Word and Mass Healing Word. These are definitely things that Katara would use, and also she was technically a healer in the TV series too. So with both of these are going to essentially be both self-sustained for us, but also helping out our teammates in battle, and it's almost like we're going to be an offhand support. Ring of Regeneration is going to keep us fighting on the battlefield too. At the beginning of our turn, the ring activates and heals us 1 to 4 hit points. I know it seems meager, but it's going to stack up with some of our other regeneration abilities with our equipment too. With Burnished Ring, it's what it sounds like, paralyzes a target and also keeps them immobile for 2 turns. This is essentially more bloodbending potential from Katara. I know, it seems like we're really leaning into her bloodbending abilities and just trying to maximize them out and utilize them as much as possible when it comes to battlefield tactics, even though Katara herself has definitely shied away from it or really doesn't want to utilize it unless necessary. Nonetheless, hey, she does have the ability, so we are, as the players, are going to exploit it. I mean, utilize it to the best of our abilities. Alright everyone, when it comes to our main pieces of equipment, we'll be taking 3 pieces from the Weave Mothers set, and also 2 pieces from the modded Frigid set. with our headpiece, Hood of the Weave, arcane enchantment, +2 bonus to spell save DC and spell attack rolls, pairing well with the arcane enchantment from Staff of Spell Power, Weave Mother's Robe, temperature adjustment, resistance to fire and cold damage, and also with watery rejuvenation. If the wearer is standing in a water surface at the start of their turn, heal themselves 1 to 4 hit points, stacking up with our Ring of Regeneration, and also granting us the ability to create or destroy water, essentially making a healing surface for us. And also with Wave Mother's Boots, if the wearer is standing in a water surface at the start of their turn, heal another additional 1 to 4 hit points. Again, really just upping up the healing and regeneration potential for ourselves and staying on the water surface to stand our ground. Frigid Adept Gloves. Frigid Strikes. Whenever you deal cold damage, the target needs to succeed a Constitution saving throw or become chilled for 3 turns. The chilled condition, affected entity is vulnerable to cold damage and resistant to fire damage. I also really want to focus on the quick spell flinger ability here. Cantrips that cost an action cost a bonus action instead. This effect can be used once per short rest. This is essentially kind of like that meta magic ability, but essentially it allows us to keep using crowd control cantrips and spells as well. We also gain an extra Cone of Cold spell that won't use up a Warlock spell slot. We'll also have the last piece of equipment here, Cloak of the Frigid Adept. Frigid Retaliation. When a creature deals damage to us, that creature will take 3 to 12 cold damage and create a surface of ice beneath us. Plus also, this is kind of like our reflect damage ability too. Also with Adroit Caster, cantrips targeting foes and allies can target an additional creature. Same target can be chosen twice, really just pairing well with a quick spell flinger as well. Overall, this entire mismatch of different equipment really will synergize well and give us a lot of high potential to really be nearly a one-woman caster doom stack. Alright everyone, that has been my character showcase of the Fathomless Patron Pact for the Warlock, aka the Waterbender Warlock build. Let me know in the comments if you agree with my choices on spells, equipment, and overall leveling for this character, or if you would make different choices too in the build. I always love hearing different opinions and also different types of playstyles too. And also for the new and returning viewers, thank you so much for taking the time to watch all the way through. And again, for anyone who is new in the comments section, if you would love to see more of these types of character builds, whether it's for Baldur's Gate or later on Elder Scrolls and Skyrim, and also for the Warhammer players out there, I would love for all of you to join in on those future adventures. There will be other different types of character builds, and yes, most definitely multi-classing modded classes together. Those are going to be very wild videos to showcase too. But until then, take care, farewell, and I'll see you all on the next adventure.